Black Eyes TV in the house once again. Yeah, your host and interviewer Terry Riggs, talking to the one, Dalian from Ancestral Voices, the DVD. Take it away, Terry Riggs, here at the British Museum.
Hello people, this is Black Eyes TV, and remember Black Eyes TV, one word. Please subscribe to it and promote our thing that we're trying to do right now. At this precise moment, I'm with this beautiful and this guy is very incredible. He knows his information, he knows his ancestrals, and he goes back and forth. He's even made this DVD, and if you have the chance, try and see if you can buy this DVD, because this is a good DVD, good information that you can see. There's even got a top priest from Ghana, but today we're going to talk to Dalian, and Dalian's going to explain everything to us about everything that we're going to do today, as well as look through things in the British Museum about our ancestors, and we're going to talk through a lot of information. Dalian, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Mr. Riggs. I don't know if I should spoil it, but it's Dalian. I don't know if you want to, yeah? Dalian.
Okay.
Okay, yeah? I'm okay, so I'm just letting you know that you can chop that off, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, Mr. Riggs. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on your show today. Yeah?
Okay, Dalian. Now, with your name at the end of the day, what kind of tribe are you from anyway?
Well, my mom's Asanti and my dad is from Ko, so because it's matrilineal, I am Asanti. Yeah.
Okay. Because I've always, like, since Kwame Nkrumah took over and like he called it Ghana, and a lot of people have taken that concept that it's originally Ghana, but for what I know of is that like it was the Ashantis that were there, and who were originally called Akans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, well, the Asantis they formed a confederation with a few other tribes like the Fantis, like the Achin people, because the language they speak is quite similar. Yeah. So you have like tree, you have Asanti tree, and even the Fantis, their version of tree as well, same, but you have a few, should we say, dialectical differences. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the Asantis, predominantly known to be in Ghana. I would say possibly for the longest time, but we also know that there's a migration pattern that can be traced from most people in West Africa anyway, from east. Some even trace it as far back as the Nile, because there are many similarities, especially between what the Asantis do on a spiritual cosmological level to what the ancient Kemetans or Egyptians used to do. There also used to be a very old kingdom in Africa called Ghana, so I believe that's where the name itself was chosen, I guess, to commemorate that old empire that was there, in the days of, be it the Songhai Empire and the Mali Empire. There was also a Ghana Empire. From what the sources have come across, this was one of the influencing factors that led to Nkrumah choosing the name Ghana, because it used to be called the Gold Coast under the British administration.
Yeah, so now, like, kind of understand where you're from, and we want to go in depth of what inspired you to actually go into film production anyway.
Well, going into film production is more having a kind of natural creative talent. I've always been kind of quite into sketching, drawing from a very, very young age. So I've always known that I've had that creative element within me. And it's from, I guess, developing it, going to college, doing a course in media and communications, that piqued my interest in filmmaking from there. Then I just continued it on through to university, and then the rest is history, as they say. That's how I came into video production.
You see, like as we look into the film production anyway, as a whole, it's not very easy.
Yeah.
And we're always trying to find ways to get that, put our evidence within like films and things like that, our information. How do you go about things, and how do you do the things that you need to do to get to where you need to be?
Well, Different ways, you know. It depends on what you're trying to achieve first of all. That will determine, I guess, how you go about it, you know. So, for instance, with Ancestral Voices, the documentary, because it's a subject that people seem very ignorant about or seem to think is this negative topic, we found it very hard to raise funds for, you know. So, for instance, the very first one, which is the DVD you just showed with this one here, we had to fund it all on our own. It was self-funded, you know, because we weren't getting anyone to come on board. But since we released this film, it's held in about 6 different universities across the world. I guess it has raised this profile such that now, as we're fundraising for the second, we are getting some support. But even then, we're still short of the limit, you know. But let's say if I wanted to do a film that was just generic, you know, about entertainment, just, yeah, something, I guess, not really insightful or, yeah, just strictly for entertainment, perhaps there could be other funding bodies I could go to which would be more willing to give me money to do. So it depends on the nature of your project, and that will determine, I guess, to a degree, a lot of how you can easily raise funds or not.
But you know, like, this like for this second one that you're releasing, the second one that you're releasing now, and there was someone out there that wanted to help you out or put you on that pedestal to invest or try to do something to work beside you. How would they get to you?
Yes, well, anyone interested, because we work collaboratively. We try and spread as much of our skill base as possible. So, for instance, at the moment we're looking for music producers to contribute their music to our productions, you know, for Ancestral Voices 2 in particular. So we put that out there on our Facebook page, and so far we've got a lot of people sending in music, you know, and are willing to work with us, as much as we don't have the money to even necessarily pay them now. But in the event of, you know, things going well, film bringing in some income, we would then also reciprocate. But we have a website, which is all the 3 W's, ancestralvoices.co.uk. So that's 3 W's, Ancestral Voices, all one word, .co.uk. On there you can have the means to email us, you know, tell us exactly how you'd like to be involved, and then we can respond and take it from there. Also on our website we have a donation button that people can click on to donate to what we do. So that's the 3 W's, ancestralvoices.co.uk.
You know, and like for the youth, I'm always trying to show the youth out there, and even not just the youth, people that want to create their own business. Because, you know, one thing that we have a problem with is that we create an empire, but we never know how to create the economy within that empire. Do you understand? So we tend to rely on others when we can actually do things, like how our ancestors did their things in the past.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, what kind of economy are you trying to create for yourself?
Well, in terms of the economy I'm trying to create off this, there's a lot of things that are going to come off this film. For instance, you know, we filmed all over the world. We went to Haiti, we went to Brazil, the States. You know, we've interviewed scholars, we've interviewed traditional priests, such as Credo Mutua, you know, the Zulu High Sanusi. What we're doing off the film, we had over 10 hours of footage, right, of hardcore interviews with serious information from different traditions. We cannot make a 10-hour film. No one has the concentration or patience to watch that. We have to bring it down to, let's say, 2 hours maximum. That's what we're aiming for. It might be an hour and a half, maximum 2 hours. But then all the extra information, for instance, we're going to go put in a book. Yes, because a book, the nature of editing a film, it makes certain things difficult. You have to do a lot of editing. Yeah. However, with a book, that gives us more leeway to present this information in a linear format, and we don't have to chop so many things out. So the economy we're trying to build is off that. We could also, for instance, start delivering classes, how to build a spiritual practice in your home. You know, this is what we're trying to do with the information. So there's many publications that can come just off the film. Yes, and then from that, those works could also then support other video productions that we might do in the future. You know, so I'll give you an example. I did another film called As It Grows, which was about African textured hair and the issues around it in mainstream society. And some of the money that was used to be a fund or the equipment for it came from what we've been using for Ancestral Voices. So we're trying to get it to generate enough income such that it can sustain other projects. This is the economy we're trying to build around the project. You know, we could talk about so many things. It could go into perhaps even in a long future term, acquiring artifacts of significance. It could then become a museum of sorts, you know, where these are all stored. So yeah, there's a lot of we can build a massive economy around it, but again, everything becomes a step-by-step process. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
now
So
let's just get to this, straight to this DVD. We'll show you once again. You know, if you want this DVD, you best come and buy it because they're running out and part 2's coming soon. Remember that. Anyway, yes, Dalian, on this DVD, let's have a quick breakdown on this DVD, and you know, because some people that don't understand about what our ancestors did and what they were about and why the reason why they tried to give us the information, and we kind of nowadays dismissed a lot of things.
Right, yes.
So give us a quick breakdown on this number one.
Okay, yeah. Number one, what number one does, as I'm sure everyone is aware, you know, African spiritual traditions gets a lot of flack. You know, the most, I guess, significant one is even the way they've mistermed the traditions from Benin, which is now predominantly Haiti, which they call voodoo. You know, which is a kind of bastardization of the original word, which is Vodun, which actually means spirit. Yes, so when you go into the Vodun people, this is from Professor James Smalls. He's a scholar formerly at the New York University. He tells us that in Benin, or among the Fon people, when you say Vodou Daha, yeah, and then the other, it's escaped me at the minute, it means you're recognizing the spirit of God in you. Yes, but then when you think of the Hollywood word now, or their version, which they call voodoo, and voodoo now connotates all the kind of negative devil worshipping kind of imagery that has been put through mainly films. So we can look at things like Dr. No with James Bond, where, you know, there was this voodoo priest. Child's Play, there was this Haitian priest who gave this guy a practice to do whereby he could put a spirit into this doll, and then the doll went around killing people. So it's mainly these imagery that helps to distort the true nature of African spiritual systems. But giving you the example that I just gave you, as you can see, it deals with mainly your connection with God, and that connection is a very personal one, and that when you then use this concept of God, because that's essentially what we're dealing with, you know. In Africa, God is not just a man who's sitting in some fancy place and, you know, you can call him and he can help you. No, you recognize that you are a manifestation of God. As a result, your actions and your whole demeanor on earth is geared towards you elevating yourself to such a state that when you pass, that spirit can then reunite with the essence of God or the Creator, you know, because when we use the word God, it only connotates this image of one man. So sometimes it can throw off the conception of the African, you know, because it's not in that form. In Africa, the very first expression of the idea of God was a female. Yeah. So that goal is totally, in a sense, on the other side to what Christianity or Islam might put forward, you know. Okay. Yeah. So
so on the basis, like, a lot of people get the conception of, like, for instance, that you have as what we call the Most High and the Deities.
Yes.
Like, how would you define deities to people?
Okay. Now you see, with the way the African conceptualization works, God, when we talk of this concept within religions of God being omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscience, meaning it's everywhere, it's all powerful, it's all knowing. Yes, in the African system, all these three concepts you find same. So at the very core of African spirituality, the conceptualization of the Creator or God is that God is in all things at all times at once. So there is no, in a sense, separation of this idea of God. Everything in existence expresses that. Now, the deities are different manifestations. So within the idea of God are different manifestations of God. I'll give you a few. Nature is the very first one. Now, the reason why nature falls under the conceptualization of God for the African is, when you think about it, where do you get your food from? Where do you get the water that you drink or use to cook your food or use to wash yourself from? So nature provides for you, which is what falls under the idea of God, that God looks after the needs of his creations. Now, and most importantly, you find all the elements of nature within you. This is why nature can sustain us human beings, because we're so much like nature. We're about 75% and more water, which is why the movement of the moon can affect the way we behave. Yes. Okay. So again, you see, just looking at the human body, you can already tie that into the natural forces, and then you can tie that into planets such as the moon. Yes, all these things are interconnected, which is where the African conception of the creator is so key, because again, God is everything at all times at once. So this is
because you know what I tend to find, as I said to you, when you get a lot of Europeans and you get a lot of people, which now they try to convert them deities as if it's a whole heap of gods.
Yes, no, that you see again, that is one of the main tools of propaganda that the missionaries use to separate Africans from their traditions. No, the deities are not God. The deities are just an aspect of how God expresses themselves, just as we human beings become an aspect of God. In that, when you think about it, when a human being dies, what happens to your thoughts? We know we have something that animates us, but no one has really seen their own spirit, have we? No. We see the physical flesh, right? But then when we hit this stage where they say we die, where are those memories gone? Where do they go? Because unlike a computer where you can take off the data, with a human being, all that information is gone. Where does it go? Like, if we look at the newer people, for instance, what they say is that breath of life returns back to God. Yeah? And all across, again, we can go to, let's say, the Akan peoples, for instance, right? Where we deal with this concept of Hebre, which is you, or even the Yoruba.
How do you pronounce that again?
Hebre. Your Hebre, which is like your soul destiny. With the Yoruba, you have the same thing, where you're trying to reach this magnificent state. And when you get to this magnificent state, you're so wise in yourself, in your knowledge, that there's nothing more to learn, in a sense. You then, that spirit of your being returns to unite with God. Yeah? The Buddhists will call that your state of enlightenment. Same concept.
Okay. So, like on here, what type of information they get from the Ancestral Voices #1?
Perfect. Well, Ancestral Voices #1, what we sought to do was to break down this false propaganda that exists around African spirituality. So these DVDs primarily aim to open up a discourse. Let's talk about this subject that we seem so afraid to talk about. And what is this subject really about? And how did they end up becoming so negative? So we look at, for instance, the media influence. Yes. We give you a breakdown of the framework of African spirituality. So we look at, in a sense, the hierarchical systems. You know, so you have the creator as the supreme manifestation, then you have the natural forces that are manifested to aid human beings to continue to survive, and then we look at human beings as well, particular things that affect us. Again, like as I said, the soul destiny. How does that affect your character development? How does that affect you as a human being and how you live on this planet? Yes, so we look at that as well. Then we look at stigmatization, the history that came before what we have now. So what role other religious systems have had in intentionally suppressing African spirituality. So these are some of the key aims of the first film. It opens up that conversation. Let's have that conversation.
Let's have that conversation.
That's right.
So that, as I always say, your past, your present, and it will to determine your future.
Exactly.
Yeah. But in all that, right? Like I saw, it was a part, right, in that Ancestral Voices, and I was saying to myself, I wonder how Dalian's gonna cope on this.
Okay.
Because the man was actually what we call kind of like spazzing out, and he's doing the rituals. And
Yes.
he was shaking.
Okay. Yes.
And, and a lot of people didn't understand why was this guy shaking.
Yes. Okay. You see, with what has been called channeling.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't like to use the word possession because again, this comes from the vocabulary of the kind of missionary. Let's degrade because you see, when you say you're possessed, that means you have no control and no form of what you do.
Yeah.
It's something that's done by force. Whereas it's not everyone that can channel, because you have to have certain peculiarities about you that this natural force likes and can bond with. Yes, this is why it's not everyone who's able to channel, you know. So what that spasm is in essence, this person develops a unity with this force, and this force can as a result guide or pass its messages through that person. That's what channeling is for. And when obviously you're channeled, you have brought in a different entity. It's a different entity that's present. So it's no longer you with your own consciousness, so to speak. You're speaking from the consciousness of the particular deity. Yes, so as a result, you take on their mannerisms. So for instance, like among the gods, let's say, they have a deity that's a snake. Right? When this snake manifests itself, you see the human being taking on the forms of a snake, the way they behave, the way they move. So
because it's kind of nature and animals.
Exactly, because now what you have there, as much as you're seeing that same human being, their spirit is now that of that deity. So they then express the same behavior patterns or the same mannerisms of that particular
Let me just
energy.
quickly go off a bit.
Go on.
But you know, like for instance, how the Akans are, right, and their deities.
Yeah.
See, like their deities. Is it that the one that they will say like the Sankofa and the thing, or is that just proverbs?
No, the Sankofa falls into actually what we call Adinkra symbols.
Yeah.
Yes, they're a pictorial language.
Yeah.
Yes, so Sankofa is part of the whole Adinkra kind of symbol system, and they work just like proverbs because they're there to teach you particular information. So Sankofa, as one of the concepts, represents the idea of going back, that you learn from what came before. And when you think about the world and even how, should we say, even science or everything, we're always in a state of progression. And the progression works because we're learning from what came before. So let's say we might have started from, look at the big chunky brick mobile phones that had, and now look at perhaps your Samsung or your, it comes from a certain source. So Sankofa represents this idea that there's a lot of knowledge that can be had in the past, and that you do not lose sight of these past values because they can inform your future for the better.
Because, like, for instance, like let's look at it as an Africa, or just that's not in concept.
Yes.
As I always call it, I call it the Middle Earth, because when the European person came, it gave us a name.
Yes.
And put us into a place. So what I was saying is, say like now, for instance, like for like your people and how they maneuver, how would you connect your kind of familiarities deities to like an Egyptian deities? Because I always say that we're all based on tribes, but we indirectly, when we break it down to the smallest, we still have the same ideology.
Yes, of
so
course.
It's just what I call a different language and a different site, but
That's
it's
right.
the same thing.
Of course, 100%.
So how would, if I wanted to compare one of your deities to an Egyptian deity, what would you compare together?
The film. So we've dedicated a big section of the film to rituals. How can you set up an ancestral ritual practice in your home?
Hold that thought for a second, because you know what it is that I had one thing, a thing where I was speaking to someone and they were explaining, right? Okay, it was on the forms of the Egyptian mythology.
Yes.
Right, and because they said, okay, I'm coming out of that church and I'm not going to the church now. What can I do to replace the same ideology that I was doing at the church in the Kemetic science kind of thing? Because they were kind of lost. So in this spirituality, as you're explaining, how would someone go with that?
Well, it goes exactly, is exactly what the point I was trying to make, because we needed to empower people. because it's not only enough that we can just, I guess, deconstruct something that you've held highly for so long and then just leave you there. Then what do? You know, we give you a system of rituals from across the continent, from the Zulus to the Haitians, to Brazil, to the Akan, to the Asian Comedians. Yeah, we give you a system of ritual practices that you can use to start developing your own spiritual power. Yes, so the film does two things. We have the intellectual stroke academic side, where we look at African spiritual traditions as a system of knowledge. So right from its conception of God, to understanding what this idea of God is about, to knowing how you can then communicate with this creator, yeah, and then as a result develop a symbiotic relationship between yourself and the creator, nature, and your fellow human beings. So that's the intellectual side. Then we have, should we say, the ritual side, where we give you a list of rituals from across various traditions: Zulu, Dagara, Haiti, Candomblé in Brazil, Vodun
that sounds like a
in
Ghanaian
Haiti.
food.
Yeah.
Kotomri.
Yeah, Kotomre, yes, that's the one. Yeah, so this is so that people then can, in their own spaces, start to understand better how their life is working. How, you know, you might wake up in the morning and you might see a particular bird sat outside your window. Why is that bird there? Why is it that today you've encountered a dog that was barking madly at you, and then 2 minutes later it's another animal? What are these symbolisms? Why are you experiencing them? You know, that's number one. Number two, what are these natural elements? Yes, how do you start beginning a relationship with what they call Orisha, Abosom, natural forces, deities? How do you start bringing them into your life, and how do you start seeing the impact they're having in your life? So we've got a whole range of rituals that is also going to be in part two. So we do those two things. We have the academic intellectual side, and then we have the practical ritual side as well, all together in the one film.
Chattering away, and we forgot that we had a camera in front of us anyway. But yeah, before we go in right into this museum anyway, just one little thing is how's the future of this thing?
Yeah, well, for this particular year, 2015, for Black History Month in October, we're going to release a vignette, which is a short film about ritual practices that people can start doing in their own spaces, in their own time, in their own homes. We're releasing that segment of the film as a way of raising funds to complete the main film, which will come out in 2016. So for this year, in October, we're going to release the Ancestral Voices 2 vignette, which is called Rituals for Living. And it covers various rituals that anyone can do in their own space, in their own time, at home, to help start increasing their spiritual awareness and spiritual power. Yes, that's what we're doing for this year. Also, we'll be releasing a book to go with the main DVD. The book will also be released in spring 2016 because we filmed for over 10 hours of ancestral information. Can't go in all one film. So we're going to compile that knowledge into a book. We're going to release a teaser for the book in September this year, 2015. So look out for that. As I said, everything can be accessed on the 3Ws, ancestralvoices.co.uk, all one word. So look out for the book in September, and then look out for the vignette in October during Black History Month.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And this is your UK tour guide to the rest of the world, giving you all this information. And now we're going to go into...
Jerusalem.